This is why prioritizing sleep will change your life. No matter how you look at it, sleep is the most foolish of biological phenomena from an evolutionary perspective. You can't socialize, you can't gather food, you can't nurture or protect your young, and you can't even find a mate and have funky times. Sleep even leaves you vulnerable to predators. If sleep is not absolutely vital, there ought to have been a strong evolutionary pressure to prevent its emergence. So why do we sleep? To first understand this, let's look into the two different types of sleep. You have non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. Firstly, let's look at REM or dream state sleep. REM sleep is when most of your dreams occur. During REM sleep, your brain activity is very similar to that of being awake. Some areas of the brain are even more active compared to when awake. The first major function of REM sleep is facilitating creativity. In a study, participants were woken during different phases of their sleep. They were shown anagrams with only one correct solution. Overall, problem-solving abilities increased by 15 to 35% when emerging from REM sleep compared to non-REM sleep. But even more intriguingly, that improvement was found even compared to waking daytime performance. The brain becomes actively biased towards seeking out more distant, non-obvious links between sets of information. In another study where participants had to navigate out of a virtual reality maze, those who napped after the first session made their way out significantly quicker. But participants who specifically dreamed about elements of the maze and themes clearly related to it showed almost 10 times more improvement in their task performance upon awakening compared to those who dreamt but not of maze-related experiences. It is the act of dreaming and the associated content of those dreams that determine creative success, which is important to note as we will discuss later. The second major function of REM sleep is emotional regulation and to overcome trauma. When we think of traumatic memories, we do not elicit the same emotional reaction. Let's look a little into the anatomy of REM sleep. Four main clusters of the brain spike in activity during REM sleep: visuospatial regions at the back of the brain, the motor cortex, the hippocampus, as well as the amygdala and cingulate cortex, which generate and process emotions. The hippocampus, amygdala, and the cingulate cortex are more active during REM sleep compared to a state of wakefulness. At the same time, the far left and right sides of the prefrontal cortex see a pronounced deactivation. The sides in particular manage rational thought and logical decision making, sending top-down instructions to your more primitive brain areas, such as those instigating emotions, such as the amygdala and cingulate cortex. Essentially, your emotions are allowed to run wild without being inhibited by the prefrontal cortex. But this isn't a bad thing. Concentrations of norepinephrine, a key stress-related chemical, are completely shut off within the brain. REM sleep is the only time during the 24-hour cycle when your brain is completely devoid of this anxiety-triggering molecule. The memory reactivation during sleep is to detach the negative emotions from the experience in a safe environment without norepinephrine. In a study that showed two groups emotionally reactive images twice, the group that slept in between showed a large and significant reduction in amygdala reactivity, as well as re-engagement in the prefrontal cortex. Those who remained awake showed no reduction in emotional reactivity. REM sleep, but also the dreaming about the specific emotional themes and sentiments of the waking trauma, resolves emotional pasts. In a study of people going through devastating breakups and divorces, those who were dreaming specifically of the painful experiences around the time of the trauma went on to gain clinical resolution from the despair. REM sleep also fine-tunes our ability to read expressions and emotions on faces. A dream-starved brain cannot accurately decode facial expressions. Participants who had a full night of sleep could distinguish one emotion from another with accuracy compared to those who were deprived of REM sleep. With the absence of such emotional acuity, the sleep-deprived individuals slipped into a default fear bias, believing even gentle or somewhat friendly-looking faces were menacing. Dreaming is not an epiphenomena of REM sleep. The two core benefits of REM sleep require you to dream, and to dream about specific things. REM sleep is necessary, but REM sleep alone is not sufficient. Therefore, dreams are not simply a byproduct of REM sleep. Now let's quickly take a look at non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is split into different stages and is characterized by the low frequency, high voltage brainwaves. It is this that allows distant areas of the brain to communicate. There are many functions of non-REM sleep. Let's go through a select few. Firstly, non-REM sleep consolidates different types of memories. An area of the brain called the hippocampus stores what we consider factual, textbook-type memories. During non-REM sleep, memories are moved to the neocortex for long-term storage. This consolidates memories as well as restores the brain's capacity for learning, making room for new memories in the hippocampus. Non-REM sleep is also a time when the brain gets very active at cleaning itself. During the waking day, there is a buildup of neurotoxins from the normal function of neurons. During non-REM sleep, cerebrospinal fluid, which is a liquid that bathes the brain, clears these toxins from the brain. Glial cells, which surround neurons allowing them to fire, even shrink up to 60% during non-REM sleep, allowing the cerebrospinal fluid to reach more spaces. This system is called the glymphatic system, similar to the body's lymphatic system, and it is the most active during non-REM sleep. One toxin removed are amyloid proteins. Beta amyloid aggregates into plaques, and in certain areas of the brain, the plaques kill surrounding brain cells, and it's these beta amyloid plaques that have strong links with Alzheimer's. Now let's look at how sleep deprivation can affect our lives. And by sleep deprivation, I don't mean days on end without any sleep. Some studies show the detrimental effects of sleeping 7 hours a day, a duration that many of us consider a perfectly normal and healthy amount of sleep daily. After 10 days of 7 hours of sleep a day, the brain is as dysfunctional as it would be after going without sleep for 24 hours. Sleep deprivation causes microsleeps, lapses in concentration that can last seconds. In another disturbing study, researchers took 2 groups of healthy adults, one of whom they got drunk to the legal driving limit, and deprived the other of sleep for 1 night. Both groups performed a concentration test. After being awake for 19 hours, people who were sleep deprived were as cognitively impaired as those who were legally drunk. Accidents caused by sleepiness total more than accidents caused by alcohol and drugs combined. In a study, when participants were asked about their subjective sense of how impaired they were, they consistently underestimated their degree of performance disability, like someone who is far too drunk, confidently saying they are able to drive. Similarly problematic is baseline resetting. With chronic sleep restriction over months or years, an individual will actually acclimate to their impaired performance, lower alertness, and reduced energy levels. That low-level exhaustion becomes their accepted norm. Participants after 3 days of recovery sleep did still not return to their baseline performance. In fact, each year there is a large global experiment that even you may be a part of. The switch to daylight savings time in the Northern Hemisphere in March results in most people losing an hour of sleep opportunity. Researchers have sifted through millions of daily hospital records and have discovered that an hour of sleep reduction results in a spike in heart attacks the following day. And in autumn, when the clocks are moved forward again, the rates of heart attacks plummet. A similar rise and fall relationship can be seen in traffic accidents. So how should we sleep? We do not sleep in the way nature intended. That's in terms of sleep bouts, duration, and the time we go to sleep. Throughout developed nations, most adults sleep in a monophasic pattern. That is, we sleep once at night, the duration of which is now less than 7 hours on average. But if you look at many hunter-gatherer tribes that still exist, they sleep in a biphasic pattern. That is, one period of sleep at night around 7 to 8 hours, along with an afternoon nap lasting 30 to 60 minutes. Biphasic sleep is not cultural, however, but it is deeply biological. All humans, irrespective of culture or geographical location, have a genetically hardwired dip in alertness in the mid-afternoon hours. This brief descent from high-degree wakefulness to low-level alertness reflects our innate desire to be asleep. A Harvard study quantified the shift from biphasic sleep to monophasic sleep in over 23,000 Greeks over 6 years, when there was increasing pressure to abandon daytime naps. They focused on cardiovascular health. Those who abandoned naps went on to suffer a 37% increased risk of death from heart disease relative to those who maintained regular naps. Amongst working men, their mortality risk increased by well over 60%. When we are cleaved from the innate practice of biphasic sleep, our lives are shortened. Those who sleep more also earn more on average. One study looked at far western and eastern locations in the same time zone in the United States. The western locations received more sunlight later into the evening, resulting in workers in the far western locations going to bed an hour later on average than those in the eastern locations. However, all workers had to wake up at the same time each morning, since they were all in the same time zone and on the same schedule. Taking out many potential factors and influences, they found that the extra hour of sleep resulted in significantly higher wages than those in the eastern locations, somewhere in the region of 4 to 5%.